Captain Jake Morrison stared through the viewport of the UES Discovery at the massive alien vessel hanging in space like a dark metal moon. 3 days ago, humanity had received its first message from another intelligent species, and now he was about to make history as the first human to meet them face to face. The meeting was set for a neutral asteroid station at the edge of human space, a small mining outpost that had been hastily converted into a diplomatic facility. Dr. Lisa Carter checked her translation device one more time while Security Chief Frank Rodriguez adjusted his sidearm nervously. The three of them would represent all of humanity in this first contact, and Morrison felt the weight of 8 billion people on his shoulders. Earth's governments had spent sleepless nights preparing for this moment, crafting careful diplomatic protocols and peaceful overtures. The alien ship was unlike anything humans had ever built. Its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and strange energy patterns danced across its surface like living lightning. The vessel was easily 10 times larger than Discovery, bristling with what could only be weapon systems. Morrison had studied every piece of data they had on the ship during the 3-day journey, but the aliens remained a complete mystery. As their shuttle approached the asteroid station, Morrison caught his first glimpse of the aliens themselves. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with gray-blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the artificial light. Their faces were angular and sharp, with large black eyes that showed no emotion. They wore elaborate armor that pulsed with the same energy patterns as their ship. The leader of the alien delegation identified himself as War Commander Zektar of the Zeltharian Empire. His voice came through the translation device as a harsh mechanical sound that made Morrison's skin crawl. Behind Zektar stood 6 other Zeltharians, all armed and obviously soldiers rather than diplomats. Morrison stepped forward with what he hoped was a peaceful gesture. "Welcome. I am Captain Morrison of the United Earth Space Fleet. We come in peace and hope to establish friendly relations between our peoples." He had practiced these words 100 times, but speaking them to actual aliens felt surreal. Zektar's response chilled Morrison to the bone. "You will surrender all human colonies to the Zeltharian Empire immediately. Your species will serve as workers in our expansion. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your worlds." Dr. Carter nearly dropped her translation device. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. Morrison felt his diplomatic training kick in as he tried to salvage the situation. "I think there may be a misunderstanding. We're here to discuss peaceful coexistence, not surrender. Perhaps we can find common ground that benefits both our species." The war commander's laugh was like grinding metal. "You mistake our purpose, human. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to inform you of your fate. The Zeltharian Empire has conquered over 200 star systems. Your pathetic species will be no different." Frank Rodriguez tensed beside Morrison, his hand moving instinctively toward his weapon. Morrison caught his eye and shook his head slightly. Starting a firefight here would doom any chance of peaceful resolution. Instead, he tried a different approach. "If your empire is so powerful, surely adding willing allies would be more valuable than conquered slaves. Humans have many skills and technologies that could benefit your people. We're explorers, engineers, scientists. We could contribute to your empire rather than simply serve it." Zektar stepped closer, towering over Morrison. "Your words prove your weakness. Strong species do not beg. They conquer or they die. We have studied your military capabilities. Your weapons are primitive kinetic projectiles and crude nuclear devices. Your ships move slowly through space with chemical propulsion. You are children playing with toys." Morrison felt his temper rising but forced himself to remain calm. "Our technology may be different from yours, but that doesn't make us weak. Sometimes different approaches to problems can lead to unexpected solutions." "Enough talk," Zektar snarled. "To demonstrate the futility of resistance, we will destroy one of your outer colonies. When you see the power of Zeltharian plasma weapons, you will understand the wisdom of immediate surrender." The casual way the alien discussed destroying an entire human settlement with millions of people made Morrison's blood run cold. "You can't just murder innocent civilians. There has to be another way." "Murder?" Zektar's alien features twisted into what might have been amusement. "We eliminate obstacles to imperial expansion. Your colonies are obstacles. Therefore, they will be eliminated. This is the natural order of the galaxy." Dr. Carter spoke up for the first time, her voice shaking. "Please, surely we can find a peaceful solution. War benefits no one." Zektar turned his black eyes on her with contempt. War benefits the strong, it eliminates the weak. This is how the galaxy has operated for millennia. The Zeltharian Empire exists because we understand this truth. Your species will learn it, or it will cease to exist. Morrison realized with growing horror that this wasn't a diplomatic mission at all. The Zeltharians had no interest in peace or negotiation. They had come to deliver an ultimatum, nothing more. He made one last desperate attempt to reach them. If you attack our colonies, you'll be starting a war with humanity. We may not have your advanced weapons, but we won't go quietly. Is conquest really worth the cost in lives on both sides? Zektar's response was to activate a device on his armor. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the asteroid station. Through the viewports, Morrison could see Zeltharian ships moving into attack position around the facility. The war commander had been stalling while his forces prepared to eliminate the human delegation. Your resistance ends here, Zektar declared. This station and everyone on it will be destroyed as the first demonstration of Zeltharian power. Your deaths will serve as a message to your species. Frank Rodriguez drew his weapon, knowing it was useless against alien armor but unable to stand by helplessly. Dr. Carter grabbed Morrison's arm in terror as energy weapons began charging outside. Morrison's mind raced as he realized they had walked into a trap. The first plasma blast hit the station's outer hull, sending shockwaves through the structure. Emergency lights flickered as the artificial gravity fluctuated. Morrison grabbed Dr. Carter and Frank, pushing them toward the emergency airlocks where their shuttle waited. They had minutes at most before the station's destruction. As they ran through corridors filled with sparking electronics and emergency klaxons, Morrison's radio crackled with desperate messages from Discovery. Captain Williams was already moving the ship away from the station, following protocol to preserve the vessel and its crew. They reached their shuttle just as another plasma blast tore through the station's central hub. Morrison threw himself into the pilot's seat while Frank helped Dr. Carter strap in. The shuttle's engines roared to life as debris from the dying station scattered around them. As they fled toward Discovery, Morrison watched the asteroid station die in a series of brilliant explosions. The Zeltharians had made their message clear. They wanted war, not peace. As the shuttle docked with Discovery and the ship jumped to hyperspace, Morrison knew that humanity was about to face its greatest challenge. The galaxy had just declared war on the human race. The emergency session of the Human Colonial Council had been called within hours of Discovery's return to Earth. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood before the assembled representatives of 43 human colonies, her face grim as she delivered the news that would change everything. The attack on the asteroid station had been just the beginning. 3 outer colonies had gone silent in the past 24 hours. President Daniel Cooper sat at the head of the council table, his hands clasped tightly as he listened to the reports flooding in from across human space. New Montana, with its population of 12 million farmers and miners, had simply stopped transmitting. The last message from Kepler Station spoke of strange ships in orbit before the signal cut to static. Harmony Colony's final transmission was a desperate plea for help that ended in screams. Dr. Alex Turner, the government's chief xenobiologist, presented his analysis of the captured sensor data from the alien attacks. The Zeltharian weapons were indeed plasma-based, creating superheated matter that could burn through ship hulls like paper. Their energy shields appeared capable of stopping any energy weapons humans possessed, and their ships moved faster than anything in the human fleet. The technological gap is significant, Dr. Turner explained to the silent council chamber. Their plasma weapons operate on principles we're only beginning to understand. Their faster-than-light drives are at least 50 years ahead of our own technology. From a purely military standpoint, we appear to be severely outmatched. Admiral Sullivan stepped forward, her voice cutting through the despair that was settling over the room. Outmatched in technology, perhaps, but not in determination. I've been in contact with every fleet commander in human space. Our ships may be slower and our weapons more primitive, but we have something these aliens clearly don't understand. She activated a holographic display showing the deployment of human forces across known space. Unlike the Zeltharian Empire's centralized command structure, human colonies operated independently while maintaining strong communication links. Each world had its own defense forces, its own manufacturing capabilities, and its own fierce determination to remain free. Colonel Steve Parker, commander of the Colonial Defense Forces, had already begun mobilizing reserve units on every human world. The colonies that had seemed so scattered and vulnerable suddenly revealed their true strength. Each settlement was essentially a fortress that could operate independently while supporting the overall defense effort. President Cooper rose from his chair, his voice carrying across the chamber with quiet authority. The Zeltharians have made a fundamental mistake. They see our peaceful nature as weakness. They think our scattered colonies make us vulnerable. They believe our primitive weapons make us helpless. They're about to learn that they're wrong on all counts. The president's words sparked something in the council chamber. Representatives who had entered the meeting in fear began to sit straighter in their chairs. The reality of the situation was settling in, but so was something else. Humanity had never faced extinction before, but they were about to show the galaxy what happened when you backed the human race into a corner. Engineer Maria Gonzalez reported from the orbital shipyards around Earth. Civilian construction facilities were already being converted for military production. Cargo haulers were being fitted with armor plating and weapon systems. Mining ships were being modified to carry nuclear warheads. The entire human industrial base was transforming itself for war, with a speed that surprised even the engineers overseeing the process. Dr. Turner's analysis of Zeltharian tactics revealed something interesting. The aliens fought with predictable patterns, following what appeared to be ancient military traditions. Their commanders seemed to expect enemies to surrender after suffering initial losses. The concept of sustained resistance appeared foreign to their thinking. Admiral Sullivan outlined the initial defense strategy. Human forces would abandon the outer colonies temporarily, drawing the Zeltharian advance toward more heavily defended systems. This wasn't retreat, it was strategic repositioning. The aliens wanted a quick conquest, but humanity would give them a long, grinding war of attrition. The news from the outer colonies grew worse by the hour. War Commander Zektar's forces were systematically destroying every human settlement they encountered. The alien broadcasts, intercepted by human intelligence, spoke of easy victories and primitive resistance. The Zeltharians believed the war would be over within days, but something else was happening across human space that the aliens couldn't see. Civilian populations were evacuating to safer systems in massive convoys protected by improvised defense fleets. Factory workers were volunteering for extended shifts to produce ammunition and spare parts. Scientists were working around the clock to find weaknesses in alien technology. Captain Morrison, still recovering from his ordeal at the asteroid station, found himself assigned to a new task force under Admiral Sullivan's command. His first-hand experience with the Zeltharians made him invaluable for planning countermeasures. The aliens' arrogance and assumption of human weakness had revealed important information about their psychology. Dr. Lisa Carter had barely slept since returning from the failed diplomatic mission. Her linguistic analysis of Zeltharian communications suggested a rigid hierarchy that discouraged independent thinking among lower-ranking soldiers. This could be exploited if human forces could disrupt alien command structures. Frank Rodriguez reported to the newly formed Special Operations Command, where his security expertise was being used to train infiltration teams. The aliens' assumption that humans would fight conventionally was about to be tested by guerrilla warfare tactics that had no place in Zeltharian military doctrine. The transformation of human space was remarkable to witness. Colonies that had spent decades focusing on peaceful exploration and scientific research were converting themselves into military strongholds. The scattered nature of human settlement, which had seemed like a weakness, was revealing itself as a strength. The aliens couldn't be everywhere at once. President Cooper's address to the nation was broadcast across every human world simultaneously. His words were simple but powerful. The Zeltharians believe they can terrorize us into submission by destroying our colonies and killing our people. They think our peaceful nature makes us weak. They assume our scattered settlements make us vulnerable. Today, humanity stands united as never before. We will show these aliens that they have awakened something they cannot understand or control. The president's speech concluded with a declaration that sent shivers down the spines of everyone who heard it. To the Zeltharian Empire, we say this: you wanted a war. You attacked our people without provocation. You murdered innocents to demonstrate your power. You have made the greatest mistake in your empire's history. You have united humanity against a common enemy. We are no longer explorers and scientists and farmers. We are now a species at war. And we will fight with everything we have until our people are free or our last breath is drawn. As the council session ended and representatives returned to their worlds to coordinate the defense effort, Something unprecedented in galactic history was taking place. An entire species was transforming itself from peaceful explorers into a military force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Ziltharians were about to discover that there was something far more dangerous than the most advanced weapons or the strongest armor, a species that refused to surrender. 3 weeks into the war, the Ziltharian Empire achieved what War Commander Zektar believed would be the decisive victory. New Texas, one of humanity's largest agricultural worlds with a population of 18 million, fell after a brutal 3-day siege. The alien commander expected news of this conquest to break human morale and force immediate surrender. Instead, something completely unexpected happened across human space. Humanity stopped trying to fight the Ziltharians on their own terms. The realization came to Commander Ben Hayes as he watched plasma fire tear through the last human defense platforms around New Texas. Human weapons couldn't penetrate alien shields, human ships couldn't match alien speed, and human armor couldn't stop alien plasma. But humans had something the Ziltharians had never encountered: the ability to completely change how they fought when the old ways stopped working. Hayes commanded a hastily assembled strike force of converted civilian vessels hiding in the asteroid belt beyond New Texas. His ships were cargo haulers, mining vessels, and passenger transports that had been stripped of everything except engines and life support. In their cargo holds, they carried something the Ziltharians had never seen before: simple tungsten rods, each one weighing several tons and accelerated to incredible speeds. The first kinetic strike hit a Ziltharian cruiser while its crew was celebrating their victory over New Texas. The tungsten rod punched through the alien ship's energy shields as if they weren't there. Because the shields were designed to stop plasma and energy weapons, not solid metal moving at relativistic speeds, the cruiser split in half, spilling atmosphere and debris into space as its crew died in confusion. Hayes watched through his tactical display as alien ships scrambled to respond to an attack they couldn't understand. Their sensors could track the incoming projectiles, but their defensive systems were useless against them. A second tungsten rod destroyed a Ziltharian destroyer. Then a third took out their command ship. In minutes, Hayes had crippled an alien fleet using technology that was thousands of years old. Dr. Rachel Stone had been studying human military history since the war began, looking for tactics that might work against technologically superior enemies. She found her answers in the guerrilla wars, resistance movements, and asymmetric conflicts that had shaped human civilization. The Ziltharians fought like an organized army following predictable patterns, but humans were about to introduce them to chaos. Stone's recommendations reached every human commander in space within days. Stop fighting like the aliens expected. Use hit-and-run tactics. Target supply lines instead of warships. Make the enemy afraid to move without massive escorts. Turn their technological advantages into weaknesses by forcing them to fight in ways they had never prepared for. Captain Nick Davis took Stone's advice to heart when he volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. The Ziltharians had brought a massive dreadnought into the Alpha Centauri system, a ship so large that its destruction would cripple alien operations in human space. Davis loaded a civilian freighter with every nuclear warhead the local defense forces could spare, then flew it straight at the alien ship. The Ziltharian crew watched in disbelief as the small human vessel approached their mighty dreadnought. Their weapons could have destroyed it easily, but they assumed it was attempting to surrender. The concept that someone would willingly die to destroy an enemy ship was so foreign to Ziltharian, thinking that they couldn't recognize what was happening until it was too late. The nuclear explosion that destroyed both ships sent shockwaves through the alien fleet that went far beyond the physical damage. The Ziltharians had built their empire by conquering species that valued individual survival above all else. They had never encountered an enemy willing to die for strategic advantage, and the psychological impact was devastating. Technical Sergeant Amy Foster discovered humanity's next advantage purely by accident. She was trying to hack into a damaged Ziltharian computer system when she realized that human viruses could infect alien networks. The mathematics underlying computer programming were universal, and the Ziltharians had never developed defenses against the kind of malicious code that human programmers created. Foster's discovery spread through human cyber warfare units like wildfire. Soon, Ziltharian ships were finding their own systems turned against them. Navigation computers would suddenly change course toward human minefields. Weapon systems would target other alien vessels. Life support would shut down without warning. The Zeltharians' technological advantage was becoming a liability as humans turned their own ships into weapons against them. War Commander Zektar found himself facing something unprecedented in 500 years of Zeltharian conquest. Human forces were not only refusing to surrender, they were actually winning battles. His carefully planned advance had stalled, then reversed. Alien supply convoys were being destroyed by ships that appeared from nowhere and vanished before his forces could respond. The turning point came when human forces began using what Dr. Stone called swarming tactics. Instead of trying to match alien ships one-on-one, humans would attack with dozens of small vessels at once. Each ship carried only one or two weapons, but together they could overwhelm even the largest Zeltharian warship. The aliens' advanced shields and armor meant nothing when faced with attacks from every direction simultaneously. Commander Hayes led the first major human counterattack using these new tactics. His fleet consisted of over 200 converted civilian ships, each one crewed by volunteers who understood they might not survive the battle. They struck a Zeltharian staging area in the Ross system like a swarm of angry hornets, destroying alien ships faster than the enemy could respond. The psychological warfare was equally effective. Zeltharian communications, intercepted by human intelligence, revealed growing fear and confusion in alien ranks. They couldn't understand how humans seemed to treat war as a puzzle to be solved, rather than a ritual of dominance. Every time the aliens adapted to human tactics, humans would develop completely new approaches. Captain Morrison, now commanding a task force of his own, received reports that would have seemed impossible just weeks earlier. Human forces had not only stopped the Zeltharian advance but were pushing them back toward their own territory. The species that had conquered 200 star systems was retreating from humans using converted cargo ships and improvised weapons. The most disturbing discovery for the Zeltharians was that humans appeared to learn from every battle. Each engagement taught human commanders new ways to exploit alien weaknesses. The rigid military doctrine that had served the Empire so well against other species was useless against an enemy that constantly evolved new tactics. Dr. Turner's analysis of captured alien equipment revealed why human adaptability was so effective. Zeltharian technology was advanced but standardized across their entire empire. Once humans figured out how to counter one ship or weapon system, they could use the same tactics against all others. The aliens' greatest strength had become their greatest weakness. As the fourth week of war ended, something unthinkable was happening across Zeltharian space. The Empire that had never known defeat was losing a war to a species they had dismissed as primitive. Human ingenuity had turned technological disadvantage into strategic advantage, and the galaxy was about to witness the fall of its greatest military power. 6 months into what the Zeltharians had expected to be a quick conquest, Supreme Commander Vextel faced the unthinkable reality that his empire was losing the war. The reports flooding into his command center on the Zeltharian homeworld painted a picture that challenged 5 centuries of military doctrine. Human forces had not only reclaimed every lost colony, but were now advancing deep into Zeltharian space itself. General Paul Martinez commanded the human offensive from his flagship, a converted industrial vessel that the aliens still couldn't identify as a warship until it opened fire. His fleet moved through Zeltharian territory like a force of nature, combining kinetic weapons, cyber warfare, and psychological operations in ways that left enemy commanders paralyzed with confusion. The humans seemed to treat each battle as an experiment, constantly testing new combinations of tactics. The Zeltharian military machine that had crushed countless civilizations found itself completely unable to adapt to human warfare. Every time alien commanders thought they understood human tactics, the humans would do something entirely different. Martinez's forces would attack supply depots one day, then vanish for weeks before striking military installations hundreds of light years away. The predictable patterns of conventional warfare had been replaced by controlled chaos. Captain Ellen Torres led the first human fleet to penetrate the core systems of the Zeltharian Empire. Her ships were a mixture of converted civilian vessels and purpose-built warships that bore no resemblance to anything in Zeltharian military databases. The aliens' tactical computers couldn't classify human vessels because humans kept changing their designs based on whatever materials and components were available. Torres's fleet demonstrated the evolution of human naval doctrine when they encountered a massive Zeltharian battle group defending the industrial world of Kethvar. Instead of engaging in a traditional fleet battle, the humans scattered into dozens of small groups and attacked from every direction at once. Some ships targeted the alien vessels directly with kinetic weapons, others deployed cyber warfare viruses, and still others broadcast psychological warfare messages designed to demoralize enemy crews. The Battle of Kethvar lasted only 3 hours, but it shattered Zeltharian confidence completely. A human force less than half the size of the alien fleet destroyed or captured every enemy ship without losing a single vessel. The Zeltharian survivors reported that fighting humans was like battling a natural disaster that could think and plan. Dr. Kevin Walsh's intelligence analysis revealed the psychological impact the war was having on Zeltharian society. Intercepted communications showed panic spreading through their civilian population as news of military defeats reached the homeworld. The species that had built an empire on the fear they inspired, in others, was now experiencing terror for the first time in their history. The Zeltharian command structure began to fracture under the pressure of constant defeats. War Commander Zektar had been executed for his failures, but his replacement fared no better against human forces. The rigid hierarchy that had served the Empire well during centuries of easy conquests became a weakness when facing an enemy that required flexible thinking and rapid adaptation. Forces discovered that Zeltharian society was completely unprepared for sustained warfare. Their empire had grown by conquering primitive species that surrendered quickly, rather than fighting prolonged campaigns. The industrial capacity needed to replace losses and the psychological resilience required for a long war simply didn't exist in Zeltharian culture. Martinez's strategic approach exploited this weakness by deliberately extending the conflict. Instead of seeking decisive battles, human forces focused on bleeding the Zeltharian military slowly, through countless small engagements. Every destroyed alien ship represented resources and experienced crew members that couldn't be easily replaced. The technological gap that had initially favored the Zeltharians was rapidly closing as human engineers reverse-engineered, captured alien equipment. But rather than simply copying Zeltharian designs, humans modified and improved them in ways that often surprised their original creators. Human weapons became hybrids that combined alien technology with human ingenuity in unpredictable combinations. Captain Torres received reports from human intelligence teams operating deep inside Zeltharian space. The aliens were withdrawing forces from their frontier territories to protect their core worlds, abandoning dozens of conquered species that immediately began reaching out to human forces for assistance. The empire that had held 200 star systems through fear was watching its own subjects revolt. The most devastating blow to Zeltharian morale came when human cyber warfare specialists succeeded in hacking the Empire's central communication network. For one day, every Zeltharian military and civilian facility received broadcasts showing human victories and alien defeats. The propaganda value was immense, but the demonstration of human technical capability was even more important. Supreme Commander Vexthal found himself commanding an empire in collapse. His military advisors spoke of strategic withdrawal and defensive consolidation, concepts that hadn't been needed in Zeltharian vocabulary for centuries. The species that had never known defeat was learning what it felt like to be afraid. Human forces reached the edge of the Zeltharian home system after 8 months of continuous advance. Captain Morrison, who had survived the original First Contact disaster, now commanded one of the most powerful fleets in human space. His ships carried weapons that could crack planets and cyber viruses that could shut down entire star systems. But the most terrifying thing about the human fleet was the knowledge that it represented only a fraction of humanity's total military capability. The psychological warfare reached its peak when human forces demonstrated they could strike the Zeltharian homeworld at will without actually attacking it. Torres's fleet appeared in orbit around the alien capital, launched a single kinetic projectile that struck an uninhabited moon, then vanished before the planetary defenses could respond. The message was clear: humanity could destroy the Zeltharian homeworld whenever it chose to do so. Dr. Walsh's final intelligence report on Zeltharian society painted a picture of complete collapse. Their economy was failing as resources were diverted to a war effort that seemed hopeless. Their military was demoralized and increasingly unwilling to fight an enemy they couldn't understand. Their government was fracturing as different factions blamed each other for the disaster. The species that had terrorized the galaxy for 5 centuries was now hiding in their core systems. Afraid to venture beyond their heavily defended borders, human forces controlled most of what had once been Zeltharian space, and dozens of formerly conquered species had joined the growing alliance against their former oppressors. General Martinez received new orders from Earth as the human offensive reached its climax. The goal was no longer just victory, but the complete transformation of galactic civilization. Humanity had proven that technological superiority meant nothing against creative thinking and adaptive tactics. The old order based on fear and dominance was ending, and humans intended to build something better in its place. The war that was supposed to last days had stretched into 10 months when Supreme Commander Vexthul sent the message that would reshape galactic civilization. The transmission reached Admiral Kate Sullivan aboard her flagship as human forces maintained their blockade of the Zeltharian home system. The once mighty empire that had terrorized 200 worlds was requesting peace negotiations, and the tone of desperation in the alien commander's voice told the whole story. Ambassador Carol Thompson arrived at the neutral station chosen for the peace talks, with a delegation that included General Larry Johnson and Captain Jake Morrison. The meeting place was deliberately symbolic, a human-built facility in what had once been the heart of Zeltharian space. The aliens who had demanded humanity's surrender less than a year ago now sat across from human negotiators as supplicants begging for mercy. Vexthul himself attended the negotiations, his towering frame somehow diminished by defeat. The Supreme Commander, who had once ruled an empire spanning hundreds of star systems, now spoke in hushed tones about acceptable terms for surrender. The psychological transformation was complete, but Ambassador Thompson recognized that the real victory lay not in humiliating the defeated, but in building a stable future. The peace treaty that emerged from 2 weeks of negotiations established humanity as the dominant military power in the galaxy, but more importantly, it created a framework for preventing future wars of conquest. The Zeltharian Empire was broken apart, with their former subjects given the choice of independence or joining the new human defense alliance that was forming around Earth's leadership. General Johnson oversaw the dismantling of the Zeltharian military machine, ensuring that their most dangerous weapons were either destroyed or placed under human control. The alien fleet that had once been the terror of the galaxy was reduced to a small defensive force allowed to protect only their core worlds. The species that had built their identity around military conquest would have to find a new purpose in a galaxy that no longer feared them. The war, reparations demanded by the human negotiators, were not the traditional tribute of conquered peoples, but something far more valuable. The Zeltharians would share their advanced technology freely with all species, help rebuild the worlds they had damaged, and contribute to a galactic peacekeeping force under human command. The empire built on dominance would be transformed into a contributor to galactic stability. Captain Morrison found himself commanding the largest diplomatic mission in human history as dozens of alien species sent representatives to Earth seeking alliance and protection. The psychological impact of humanity's victory had spread far beyond the former Zeltharian Empire. Species that had been neutral or even hostile to humans now sought their friendship and military protection. Dr. Martha Clark's post-war analysis revealed why humans had succeeded where every other species had failed. The galaxy was filled with civilizations that had evolved from either herd animals that valued conformity and following leaders, or solitary predators that relied on individual strength. Humans were unique as evolved pack hunters who combined individual initiative with group cooperation in ways that created exponential advantages. The human defense alliance grew rapidly as former Zeltharian subjects and neutral species alike sought membership. The alliance offered something that had never existed in galactic history, a military power that protected others without seeking to dominate them. Humanity's reputation for treating allies as equals, rather than subjects, attracted civilizations that had hidden from galactic politics for centuries. The transformation of galactic civilization was visible everywhere. Trade routes that had been controlled by Zeltharian military forces open to all species. Scientific knowledge that had been hoarded by the Empire was shared freely among Alliance members. Worlds that had lived in fear for generations began to prosper under human protection. The Zeltharians themselves underwent the most dramatic change of all. Stripped of their military dominance, they were forced to develop skills they had never needed before. Their advanced technology, when combined with human creativity and other species' unique capabilities, led to innovations that benefited everyone. The former conquerors became valuable contributors to galactic civilization. Captain Ellen Torres established the Human Defense Academy on the former Zeltharian military training world, where officers from dozens of species learned the tactics and strategies that had defeated the galaxy's greatest empire. The lessons went far beyond military doctrine to include human concepts of adaptive thinking, cooperative problem-solving, and ethical leadership. The psychological impact of the war extended to species that had never encountered either humans or Zeltharians. Word spread throughout the galaxy of the newcomers who had defeated an empire through intelligence and creativity, rather than superior firepower. Humanity became a symbol of hope for smaller civilizations that had previously believed themselves helpless against larger powers. General Martinez transitioned from military commander to the first director of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force, an organization that combined human leadership with personnel and resources from over 50 allied species. The force's mission was to prevent the rise of another conquest-based empire while protecting the rights of all civilizations to develop according to their own values. The economic transformation of galactic civilization was equally dramatic. The Zeltharian Empire had operated on a system of tribute and forced labor that stifled innovation and trade. The Human Defense Alliance created open markets where species could trade freely, based on mutual benefit, rather than military coercion. Prosperity spread to regions that had been impoverished under alien rule. Dr. Clark's research into human evolutionary advantages became required study at universities throughout Alliance space. Other species began to understand that humanity's success came not from superior technology or individual capability, but from unique social adaptations that allowed unprecedented cooperation under pressure. The lessons learned from studying human society influenced the development of other civilizations. The war crimes trials that followed. The peace treaty sent a clear message to any species considering future conquest. Zeltharian officers responsible for genocide and civilian massacres faced justice under a new galactic court system that established universal standards for warfare. The galaxy would no longer tolerate the deliberate targeting of innocent populations. Captain Morrison, standing on the observation deck of the diplomatic station orbiting Earth, looked out at the most diverse fleet ever assembled. Ships from 73 different species flew in formation around the human homeworld, each one representing a civilization that had chosen cooperation over conquest. The galaxy that had once been ruled by fear was learning to function through mutual respect. The final irony was not lost on human historians. The Zeltharians had attacked humanity because they saw them as weak and primitive. In doing so, they had awakened something that transformed not just human civilization, but the entire galaxy. The species that had seemed most vulnerable had proven to be the most dangerous enemy the galaxy's apex predators could have chosen. The message was spreading to the farthest reaches of known space, carried by traders and diplomats and refugees from oppression. Never again would a galactic empire rise through conquest and fear. Humanity had shown that there was always a bigger fish, and sometimes that fish wore the face of a species that preferred peace, but would fight with devastating creativity when threatened with extinction.